Have you ever tried to get a handle on how psychology is actually organized? I mean, it's this massive, sprawling discipline, and the way we talk about its different parts can get surprisingly confusing. So in this explainer, we're going to untangle one of the trickiest knots in the whole field to give you a really clear map of the psychological landscape.
So let's just dive right into the main question. You hear all these terms thrown around: clinical psychology, cognitive, social, forensic, all the time. But what are they really? Are they branches of psychology, or are they fields? And honestly, does it even make a difference?
Well, here's the thing. Most people, and yeah, even some textbooks, use those terms as if they mean the same thing, but they don't. They actually point to two very different and very important roles within psychology. And by the time we're done here, you're going to know exactly how to tell them apart.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with why this is so confusing in the first place. Then we'll get to the core of it, the difference between theory and practice. We'll look at how history created this divide, meet the key players on both sides, see how they actually work together, and then wrap it all up with why this isn't just trivia, why it really, truly matters. First up, let's talk about the confusion itself. Let's set the stage for why these terms are so tricky to pin down.
And look, if you've been confused by this, you are absolutely not alone. This isn't just you or me getting it mixed up. The source material points out that even inside the discipline, there's an acknowledged terminological confusion. Psychology has gotten so big, so diverse, that the very language we use to organize it has become, well, a little bit of a mess.
So how do we clean up that mess? Well, it all boils down to one simple fundamental difference: the divide between theory and practice. So on one side, you have what we call fields, or sometimes areas. Think of these as the research and development departments of psychology. They are all about the theory, about investigating how our minds and behaviors tick. The question that drives them is always that big foundational one: why or how does this actually work?
And then, on the other side, you have the branches. This is where the rubber meets the road. These are the applied divisions, where all that psychological knowledge gets put to work out in the real world. A branch is asking a totally different question. Okay, we know this stuff. Now how can we use it to actually help someone or solve a real problem?
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. For a field, the whole game is the topic itself, like memory or emotion. Success means coming up with a better theory, a stronger explanation. And you're going to find these folks in university labs and research centers. But for a branch, it's defined by the service, therapy, legal assessments, you name it. Success is a real-world outcome, like a patient's symptoms getting better. And their work happens out there, in clinics, schools, companies, and courtrooms.
Now, this split between theory and practice isn't just some random line someone drew in the sand. No, it's actually baked right into the history of psychology itself. And you can literally watch it unfold over time. Psychology's fields came first, born out of pure scientific curiosity back in the late 1800s. You know, Wilhelm Wundt in the very first psychology lab. Then you see new theoretical areas pop up. But the branches, they really exploded later, mostly because society desperately needed them. Think about it. After World War II, there was this massive, urgent need to treat soldiers dealing with trauma, and that's when clinical psychology really took off. It grew out of necessity.
Okay, so that's the theory and the history lesson. Let's make this way more concrete and actually meet the key players on each team.
First up, we've got the fields. These are the why/how specialists. You've got biological psychology asking how our brains create our reality. You've got cognitive psychology, which is obsessed with how we think, remember, and solve problems. Developmental psychology looks at the incredible journey from birth to old age. Each one is a deep dive trying to figure out a fundamental piece of the human puzzle.
And then you have the branches, the how to help specialists. This is where you see psychology in action. Clinical psychology is all about assessing and treating mental health issues. Educational psychology works to make learning better for students. And forensic psychology? That's applying all these principles inside the legal system. These are the practitioners on the front lines.
Now, it's really tempting to think of these as two completely separate worlds that never interact. But that could not be further from the truth. In reality, they're in this constant, dynamic conversation with each other.
Right, so this is the crucial takeaway. They are not isolated silos at all. They're totally intertwined. The branches are constantly using the new discoveries from the fields to improve what they do. And at the same time, the real-world challenges that pop up in the branches create brand new questions for the fields to investigate. It's a feedback loop that keeps the whole discipline moving forward.
You can kind of picture it like a knowledge pipeline. So a field, let's say social psychology, does some groundbreaking research and figures out a key principle of motivation. Then a branch, like industrial organizational psychology, grabs that research and uses it to design a way better training program for teams at a company. But a new problem comes up in that training. That practical challenge then gets sent right back to the researchers, giving them a whole new puzzle to solve.
All right, we've covered the concepts, but let's get practical. Say you're reading an article, or maybe looking at a university program. How can you quickly figure out if you're looking at a field or a branch?
Well, I've got 3 simple pocket tests you can use. First is the success test. Ask yourself, what does winning look like here? Is it a better theory, or is it a better real-world outcome? Theory means field. Outcome means branch. Second, the job ad test. Are they looking for a researcher to work in a lab, or a practitioner, like a therapist or a consultant? And third, the methods test. Are they using experiments to understand a principle, or are they using clinical interventions to create change?
So we've spent all this time drawing this clear line in the sand. But why? Is this really important? Or is it just some, academic hair splitting? Well, it's a whole lot more than that.
For anyone even remotely interested in psychology, this is huge. Understanding this distinction helps you map out your path. Are you fascinated by the big, fundamental questions of why we are the way we are? You're probably drawn to a field. But you get fired up about taking that knowledge and using it to help people directly, then you're looking at a branch. And for professionals who are already out there working, this understanding is literally the foundation of good, ethical practice. It's what ensures that the therapies and interventions being used in the branches aren't just based on hunches or what feels right. It makes sure that everything is grounded in solid scientific theory from the fields. It's what keeps the practice scientific.
And honestly, this quote from our source material just nails it. Psychology is like a tree. The fields are the deep, complex roots of theory. They anchor the whole thing in real scientific understanding. And the branches are what we see reaching out into the world, applying all that knowledge in real, practical, helpful ways. You just can't have one without the other.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Our world is changing fast, and psychology is changing right along with it. We're seeing these brand new domains pop up, like cyber psychology or the ethics of AI, where the line between research and application is getting blurry from day one. So the big question for the future is, how is this map of deep roots and practical branches going to continue to grow and evolve?